Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inks Reader. Today I am doing my April wrap-up. Been a rough day as always when I work. I've been going all over the place, so I'm a bit tired and you can tell, but that's okay. So today I am doing the April wrap-up. As you might have seen from the statistics, April didn't exactly go as I was expecting to go, which was a bit disappointing in terms of reading done. I didn't read that much, especially because I had a whole week off and I was expecting to finish so many books in that week, and I actually finished I think one or two, and then my mom came because it was my graduation ceremony for my master, so she spent 2 weeks here and we kind of went down a path of finishing a very hard, bloody hell difficult jigsaw puzzle. So I've done a lot of jigsaw puzzle with her rather than reading for the other 2 weeks of the month. I've been also working, so yeah, I didn't get so much done, and considering that my April TBR was massive, ultimately it was a huge fail if you want. So I'm gonna briefly touch upon the books that I did not finish, so I will have to carry on. As I mentioned though in my May TBR that's up on my channel, I am gonna kind of put aside these books just because I don't want to create this chain reaction where I will keep dragging books month after month. So those books that you're about to see, I will finish. I won't be putting them back on my shelves until they are done. However, I'm not prioritizing them this month, so I don't know how many I will actually get around to read in May. But the ones that I didn't even basically start apart from the first chapter was And I Darken, Beast of Prey, The Wall of Storms. I told you there was a lot. Death Watch, A Skinful of Shadows, and The Name of a Star. I am actually reading The Labyrinth of the Spirits, so technically speaking 7 books they didn't get read in April as they were supposed to. So yeah, very bad. I actually find myself reading a lot of things that were not on my TBR this month for whatever reason, but they were mostly carryover from other months, so that's why I wanted to stop this reaction. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna go from the least liked to my most liked, as always, all in terms of enjoyment, not in terms of quality, objective quality of the writing. And also at the end I'm gonna insert the same for the graphic novels and manga that I finished. Before I do that, I will officially say that I am DNFing Hades' Daughter and selling my copy. The writing honestly is not for me. This was from my March TBR, and it's also part of my fantasy TBR where I'm reading one book in each subgenre of fantasy. This was for the romantic fantasy, I believe. I'm gonna find an alternative, but I didn't want to push myself for like 500 pages of books that felt honestly like 1,000. Really dislike the writing. It's a pity, but I just couldn't, which is very weird because I love Greek mythology stories and this is all about that, but no, it wasn't for me at all. I'm sorry. So because I've read a total of 9 books in the month, I'm gonna start at number 9, which is Gothikana. This is a self-published book by Runix, so I don't know the actual name of the author. This is a dark romance fantasy novel. As of now it's a standalone. It's the story of this girl. She is basically living alone since her mother is not around anymore, and she receives a letter of admission to this prestigious but out in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere, academy. So she goes there and something very weird is going on because every 5 years, and guess what, now it's been 5 years since the last time this happened, but there is a disappearance of someone. So someone disappears and it's kind of given for dead, and there are a lot of death in general around this school, and the romance part comes from her falling for this associate professor, like this professor who's also studying for his thesis in school. So yeah, let me collect my thoughts, guys, because this has to be in the top probably 5 books, worst books I've ever read, like ever. The only reason why I pushed myself through, and this is featured in my vlog, is because it's pretty, the writing is pretty big. It was bloody expensive to purchase, so I wanted still to push myself through it, but also was honestly hate reading it. I am personally offended that this is such a high rating on Goodreads, and also I saw this recommended as the best gothic romance, fantasy romance from a booktuber, and I'm sorry, I usually don't tend to do that, but I've clicked unsubscribe to that booktuber so fucking fast after finishing this. It's not even funny. Like literally the first thing is like, I need to write a review and I need to unsubscribe because no, if that's the best you could have read, I don't want to hear of your other recommendations, which is very offensive for the person, so I'm not going to make names or anything of the sort, but oh boy. There was an hilarious Goodreads review, and that review said literally, yeah, what drugs have you been using? Because this was shit. Because the rating on Goodreads, like 4 point something, like it's crazy how high this is. And it's not like a bunch of reviews, it's quite a few. And I don't know, I am honestly offended. I'm honestly a bit baffled, because there are epic books on Goodreads that have such low rating, and then there is this with more than 4 as an average, and it's just like, are we from the same planet? I absolutely don't mind exchanging opinions on books. You know, maybe someone hates the book I love, which is completely fine, but I think that giving 5 stars to these is just ethically wrong. And also, like, if you like the writing of these, you literally, like, the options are to, you have not read stuff before, or you're reading it wrong. Like, I'm very sorry, I'm not judgy usually, I'm not like this at all. Like, you can like whether you want, but giving these 5 stars, no, there is something wrong with you. The writing is lame. Like, their writing is objectively bad. Like, it's not like not skillful, it's not like, their writing is honestly very extremely poor. So this managed to be problematic, vulgar, and boring as fuck at the same time, which is kind of remarkable if you want to think about that. The male interest though, let's say they can skip the writing, the male, like the guy Vlad, this professor, he literally said nothing of value throughout the book. The only sentences he would say were so vulgar. It's this sort of ape man, abusive, absolutely abusive, who couldn't put together a sentence without being a pig about that. Like, I have literally moments in this book, tabs, where she was recounting like traumas of her life, and he was like, oh, what happened to you? And then he would just say, oh, you know, I'm gonna go down on you, whether he's gonna do like any sexual thing that he was gonna do. So that was his response. Like, if he was asking a question, which was in itself very rare, then he would just immediately turn his answer to her disclosure as a sexual thing or a sexual act. Absolutely disgusting. The idea that people romanticize him or see this as a relationship. This was an abusive relationship with an older male who is in power over you. Like, this girl, she says this, like, I'm dumb. Yes, girl, like, you're one of the fucking dumbest bitches I've ever met. However, I understand that you came from, you know, a very poor family background, you kind of grew up on your own. I don't mind that necessarily. Like, you got on my nerves, but that was not the issue. No. Okay. Now that I can take a breath again and I can go on, I'm gonna go on and move to a very unpopular opinion. Now, at number 8, I have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. Listen, I know this is a very popular YA as of now, is the stunning Fairyloot edition, like breathtaking Fairy edition. And this is the story of this girl. She lives in this world where basically in their kingdom they have to sacrifice a young girl every amount of years to the sea god, because in that way the sea god will not lash out at them and they will be able to eat and, you know, go fishing and all of that. So at the beginning of our story, the girl that's been chosen for this year is actually the betrothed, or like the girl that her brother, the main protagonist's brother, loves. So they are in this boat, she's about to be sacrificed, and our main protagonist makes a very reckless choice. So I'm gonna just leave it there. You can guess where this is going and blah blah blah. And this is a YA fantasy. Now this is not an issue with the writing. I think a lot of people will probably like this. For me, this had a very strong start, but it kind of lost me 50 pages in. For the majority of the plot, we honestly don't know what the ultimate goal is. Like, we have an idea, but we don't know what she's doing to get there. It's all very random in my opinion. And by the time I figure out what she's doing, and I guess by the time she figures out what she's doing, I was like not interested. Like, the only thing I have to describe this for me was extremely bland. The writing was good. I didn't mind necessarily the characters, but as someone who values the plot a lot, it was just an uninteresting plot. And I wouldn't necessarily say that just this is because it's a YA, because I do enjoy YA now and then, not as much as before, but I do enjoy YA sometimes. They can still have interesting plot, twisted plot that I don't see coming things, or I don't know, that they just intrigue and lure me in. This just had a very luring start and then just completely lost me. I was just meh, like literally I would describe this as meh. I forgot most of it by the end of the month. I will keep it though, because I'm not getting rid of any for a limited edition. But at number 7 we have A Certain Slant of Light. And this is a book that I owned for ages, and it's kind of a paranormal fantasy where you have this girl, she's been a ghost for 100 years, and the way it works for her is that she kind of attaches herself to a human that she follows throughout the years until he either passes away or she chooses another host. So she's technically hunting those persons, those people, and she's now in this classroom with her hunted host at the moment, where she noticed that one boy in the class actually can see her. And the story starts from there, from, you know, her finally, after hundreds of years of being this ghost and being completely ignored and not acknowledged, someone can physically see her presence. And I don't know what to say about this. It's a series, first of all, so I think it's a duology, which I won't continue on. The writing was okay, again, nothing wrong there. However, I think although there was a tiny bit in the end that I did enjoy, that captured me, like a scene that I thought it was very well portrayed and well done. Apart from that scene, it all fell in the meh category, as the girl who fell beneath the sea went. Like, and at points I was like, I wasn't bored, I didn't mind reading through this, but I also had those thoughts as, am I reading something about these? And I don't want to spoil anything. This is not your typical ghost story. I think it's just a bit weird, but not the weird that made me think, ooh, okay, this is weird. I was walking this weird line where I didn't know if I was being put off by some of the scenes in here. I was like, why am I spending time reading about these things happen? Because I thought some of the things that happened were unnecessary or dumb or like silly. But on the other side, I was like, this is kind of disturbing if I look at this in another light. So it's a YA, I think, more or less new adult, YA. I think I would go with a YA, but I'm gonna get rid of these. I will never ever read these, and ultimately I walked that line until the end and never decided which way to go. So there's that. At number 6 we have Angelfall. This is a popular YA, at least it was a few years back, and it's a post-apocalyptic YA in which angels all of a sudden come to Earth and actually destroy it. So they're here to enslave, destroy humanity, rather than save it, which is something that usually you don't get. Usually are the good guys. In this case, they are the very bad guys, and you follow our protagonist. She's just trying to survive with her mother, who has some very major mental health issues going on, and her sister, who is on a wheelchair. So she is at the beginning of the book just going through the city trying to find shelter and food for her mother and sister. And she witnessed a fight between a group of angel and another angel, and this other angel is left injured. So she actually, for a series of events, takes this angel and they hide together and things start from there. Now I think this is what I would consider a good YA. It's action-packed and the writing is not cringy or plain. It doesn't dumb down things, and the cliche things that are present are very much kept to a minimum. I did really enjoy our main protagonist, I didn't mind reading through this quick read, and ultimately I thought it was a bit more gruesome and didn't shy away from going places just because it was a YA, which I really appreciated. Why am I a bit on the fence if I ever continue this on, or ultimately it wasn't very high on my list, is because I really do not like or enjoy much post-apocalyptic stuff. I think that at the end of the day, they are dystopian post-apocalyptic stuff that I've read so far, at least. Ultimately they kind of sound like it's the same thing given you in another format with another writing, other protagonists, but we always go down that route, and just it doesn't feel new, and it's not a genre that I particularly love. So that's why it's a 6th place. I might continue on, I might look for the audiobook, I'm not so sure we'll keep this. I might look on charity shops for the continuation, so I'm not giving up on the series as of now, but it's not a series that I would put my hands on the fire that I will finish. I just realized I didn't give you ratings for the books, but you can find the ratings up here. I gave this 4 stars. And number 5, actually, I have the first audiobook I finished this month, A Good Girl Guide to Murder. This is a YA crime thriller, and this is about this girl. She decides to do a school assignment reviewing this cold case in which a girl just a bit older than her disappeared a few years back. She is thought dead, and the whole town thinks that her boyfriend at the time killed her and then he committed suicide. But our main protagonist, she doesn't believe that things went down that way. So she goes on this adventure to discover the truth, and she does that by enlisting also the help of the brother of this boy who allegedly killed the girl and then committed suicide. I had heard a few things about these and I wanted to try it out, and I don't regret my choice at all. I really enjoyed these overall. It was a very good audiobook to follow, and I enjoyed my time discovery stuff and going on this adventure, so I enjoyed this throughout. I did call some of the twists, but not all of them. I didn't see the bigger picture, so it was nice for me to discover that together with our main protagonist. And I also like that this mixes a lot of humor and banter with a lot of actual serious topics, and how that's done. The balance was very good in my opinion. And although the ending, the resolution isn't mind-blowing, it wasn't like what's happening, there were definitely good moments where I had like a smile on my face and just said, oh, that's what happened. I will definitely continue on with the series. I think it's like 3 books so far where we follow the same protagonist resolving cases, I guess. So we'll check them out on audio. I don't feel the need of purchasing these or having them in my possession, but I will definitely check out the audio, and I gave this 4 stars. And number 4, another what could be considered potentially like an unpopular opinion, but not necessarily, in the sense that I did enjoy this, but not as much as other people have. We have the Atlas 6. This is the Fairyloot edition. This was the first Fairyloot adult book box. They have done now only adult fantasy book box, so you don't get any items, but you just get a special edition of a fairly recent release. I really love these looks, and it's featured in my vlog that's coming up or just came out. So you can see the whole unboxing there. There are also illustrations inside, and this is a dark academia fantasy book in which 6 young adults are chosen by Atlas to join this very prestigious magic academy, but they are told at the beginning that after the first year only 5 of them will continue on, so 1 will have to be left off, let's just say that. I liked this, but not as much as other people did. This has nothing to do with the writing though. I think one thing that this book has, like without any doubt, is very skillful and new, fresh writing. It's a very dense story though. I used to read like 1 chapter of a book, 1 chapter of a book, 1 chapter of a book, but with these I found myself really struggling doing that, so I needed just to focus on these, just because the writing is packed, like every chapter, the way the sentences are put together, it's packed with goodness, if you want. So it's very good in that sense. What I didn't like particularly with these, it's mostly a personal taste at this point, which is this is a character-driven story, and I'm a plotty, so I care about the plot a lot. And to be fair, we don't get much plot in these, apart from the end. So in the middle, it's very much dragging. Another thing I did not really love about this is that the academic part of this book, which is like dark academia, they are in this academia, yes, but we don't see the lessons much. We don't see the actual academia life and that's something that just missed for me. This is mostly about characters exploration and mind games, which is not a bad thing. Like, honestly, I did ultimately enjoy these. I gave it a very solid 3.75, and I can even bounce it to up to 4 now that a few weeks have passed. I will definitely check out the sequel. I will probably purchase the sequel and continue on. The ending was a bit predictable in my opinion, like what happens, I kind of called that before, but I want to see where this is going. It's ultimately something that a lot of people have loved, so I think it's just because of a few elements that weren't there for me. But I'm very curious what this author does next. Like, without any doubt, there is skill behind this. Another book that many have actually said that it's not perfect, and it wasn't perfect in my eyes, is number 3. We have House of Sky and Breath. I put Crescent City book number 1 number 1 spot last year, so that's how much I enjoyed it. This is a bit different. I didn't hate it. I think a lot of people hated it and complained that nothing happened in this. I do not agree that nothing happens. I think we again go on an adventure of solving these kind of mysteries that are unraveling, and there is a lot happening in these. However, the way it's done, it wasn't as good as Crescent City book number 1 in my opinion. We tend to also have a lot of sex scenes in these, and I found that maybe because of my age, maybe because I've been reading and I've read romance in the past a lot and now I'm not anymore, that sex scenes, to the extent that they're very explicit and, you know, all the sex talks we get, I kind of think in my head sometimes like that should be behind doors, even in a book. Like, I don't need to hear the dirty talk. Like, I don't need to have like a very powerful action-packed scene or very touching scene one moment and then having like, you know, very not vulgar, because I think it's in that context maybe, you know, it's understandable why people speak the way they do, but at the same time I find it a bit vulgar, if it makes sense, and I'm just like, why am I reading about this? Like, I could have done without those scenes. You can just hint, you know, they have sex, cool, good for them, or you can make it very I think, I don't know, poetic, or like the less said the better as of now. I'm not saying don't, but I'm just saying at the same time that scene after scene, like, you know, if you've read romance book, new adult books, or like, you know, erotica fantasy before or whatever, at the end of the day there is just so many scenes that can be new and fresh. So the amount of pages that we spend talking about dicks and stuff like that, for me was just like, I don't need to hear these. I just like the action part, or like even the touching romantic stuff, but without going to like the dirty talk. It's just, it put me off a bit, which is weird. I guess I found out from myself that I change as a reader, and if there are multiple explicit sex scenes that goes down just with dirty talk and they're not a bit romanticized or whatever, I kind of get bored and kind of get to a point where, do I really need to read these? So yeah, basically the sex was awkward and the writing was a bit sloppy. I am sorry, Sarah, I've been loving her books for so long, but I honestly think that the writing in these, the way the romance became all of a sudden cheesy, I was a bit put off by that. Said that, I think one of the positive things about this book is the overarching plot and the twists that we go on. I was excited to see action and things happen, although some of those things get cold, and I was still going through them and absolutely loving them. I think she does characterization well, in a sense that I don't know why with her, I always grew attached to these bloody characters and they feel like my children, and I feel like if something happens, like I feel pain. The ending of these, and that's why these is a number 3, because you can say every bad thing about the writing or things that, you know, you didn't like, but I've yet to hear one person say that this ending wasn't mind-blowing. Like I closed this book, just screamed. Like I was like, what? Like what? Like she has done something that I've never seen done before in any of the books I've read, and I've read a lot throughout my life. I am mind blown. I cannot wait for the next book in the series now. And I think some people felt that nothing happened, that it was very boring, which wasn't me. I thought a lot of twists and things happened and I was very happy about them. But the ending, and everybody heard like, I need to know what happens next. Bloody hell, Sarah, like that's the thing with her, like I can still scream thinking about the end. It's like, what did you do? Like how like that's mind-blowing in my opinion. I also have to say that when it comes down to romance and cheesiness, I think she has a tendency sometimes to want to pair up characters without giving us the building of a relationship where we need to. So there is another character in here that at one point basically we see him falling in love with this other person, and I was just like, I don't see in my eyes, like it's not justified enough. You cannot pair up people and that's okay. And that's a critique that I heard from other people as well. I think sometimes the way she forces relationships down characters doesn't feel very natural. And number 2, we have an audiobook, which is, I know this much is true. This is a literature fiction book, and it's about the story of his brother. He has a twin, and the twin is schizophrenic, and he is going through a mental health crisis. He's put in a mental health hospital, and you follow our main protagonist kind of delving between the past and the present, and you know, the situation with his brother. And you kind of see the story unravel, how they came to be to the place where you start the book and what happens next. And I think I gave these 4 stars. It would have been probably a 5 stars or very similar to that if it wasn't for actually a rape scene that wasn't addressed as it should have, in my opinion. I think this book is from 1998, so I am conscious of the fact that the times were different, where rape culture was very different and stuff like that were dismissed way more than they might be right now, although sadly they're still dismissed all the time. So although I do understand the timing, it's still something that bugged me, and I thought that the author should have delved, unpacked and made amends way more. The protagonist, you know, and the person who does that, because I don't want to spoil anything, but the person who committed that rape should have made way more amends, and then he actually did. And it's weird to say apart from that, because that's a very big deal, okay? But if I have to put aside that scene for a second, everything else about this book was absolutely touching. And I think it touches upon the very important topics around mental health, and especially schizophrenia, which is a very misunderstood mental health illness. And it touches you with story, and it does that. It tells you this story through the eyes of a kind of faulty, to a certain degree unlikable main character, which to me it was a very honest depiction. It wasn't an autobiography, but it just felt raw and honest. It didn't sugarcoat things. It didn't make our main protagonist always choose the right thing or even necessarily amend properly for the things he did. That's a thing that I found very true to life, because people, even good people, do shitty things sometimes. Sometimes they repent, sometimes they make amends, some other times they just ignore and go ahead with it. Or just things, you know, they progress from there, but things are not very much talked about or unpacked. And that's just life for the majority of us. So I really like that this book did that. It did tie the strings where it had to, but it didn't do it all the times in all the things. And I found that very realistic. But at the same time, I saw the life path. I saw, you know, how the main character matured and how things changed. So there was still the changes happening. I really liked how this progressed and the topics, and especially again, I'm considering that this was written more than 20 years ago. So praises to the author. It was an audiobook I stumbled upon by mistake, basically. I think there's a movie with Mark Ruffalo in it, so I might check out the movie when I'm mentally ready for that. But really, I would still recommend this. It's a book that had an impact on me and probably will leave an impact on me. And finally, at number 1, we have another audiobook. Although I might not have found a favorite of the year, this is ultimately the book that enjoyment-wise I was most excited about in the end. And this is The Inheritance of Orcia Divina. Sorry, I'm butchering probably the name. This is basically the story of these members of his family that all of a sudden, after like kind of a family breakdown, they have to come back together to visit their grandma who is passing away, and she has a family secret to share with them. And when they turn up at grandma's house, something very weird is happening, and I'm gonna leave it at that. This is it's a fantasy novel. I wouldn't know if I describe this as magic realism, but I think it's a bit more like the magic is a bit more intense. The fantasy element, so the magic is definitely there. I don't know which category I would put this on fantasy. I don't know, I'd have to think about that. But I really enjoyed these. I thought if I could picture Del Toro making a movie out of these. I just recently watched Nightmare Alley, the new movie by Del Toro, when I was listening to this. I thought Del Toro would put this on a big screen in the perfect way. I really liked how we go back and forth, so we see kind of grandma's story and what's happening now, and it's all tied together and it kind of goes side by side. Hi guys, sorry, the battery died. It's the next day. And I was just saying that I liked grandma's side of the story a bit better overall, and it took me some time to get used to the current side of the story, but once I did, I was on board. I liked the journey. Again, it felt like watching a Del Toro movie, so it was overall very fascinating. I'll check more by this author, 100%. This is highly recommended, and it's a very good audiobook also. Like, I think sometimes I struggle with fantasy just because the world building and the complexities that come sometimes with reading a fantasy, but in this case it was very easy to follow. I got all the story. Very good. 4.5 stars. Definitely recommended. And also this cover, like, yeah. So on my official TBR at the beginning of the month, there were 5 graphic novels / manga. One of those I actually DNF'd, which is the one that was present in my reading vlog, and that's Skip Beat. This is kind of an edition that contains 3 normal volumes, and I gave it a try, and I just didn't finish. I just DNF'd, and actually I already sold my copy. This is basically the story of this girl. She gets to move to big town with her boyfriend, and she's kind of very much devoted to him, to a point that she's kind of working jobs to keep him going and doing everything in the house and trying to please him as much as possible, because he's trying to make it as a singer or like an idol, something of the sort, in Japan. So he's just focusing on that while she does everything else. And once he gets actually famous, he kind of dismisses her very easily, and so she gets angry and she just says, you know what, I'm gonna become famous as well, and I'm gonna kind of show you that I have a value, you know. But she doesn't have any talent. She's not a singer, she's not a dancer. So she approaches this talent agency just saying, you know, I don't have any talent, to be honest, but I wanna make it, I wanna be famous more than anything else in the world, so please help me. And it's very much a comedy, it's very much humoristic. However, I found the pages very dense to read, and I was keep getting distracted, and the humor just didn't perfectly click with me. I thought it was cute, but not to a point where I just wanted to read 3 volumes basically in one. And I found myself also not really clicking with, I think, what's gonna be the other love interest. And also I really didn't click with the thought that she wanted to be loved by others to teach her ex a lesson. That this is all about, like, even the talent agency was all aimed to, we have to make you lovable for others, because if others love you, that gives you value. And I was very much against this concept of, you know, having to do everything you can to be loved instead of loving yourself. And I think that's also the issue that she had with her boyfriend. She was doing everything for him and he just gave her the middle finger, and now she's just doing the same thing in another format, just, you know, with a broader audience where she has to please them. So if they love her, then she's a value, and I just didn't like the concept. I didn't click with it. I know that this is much beloved. I think there's also an anime, I'm not sure. So it can be very well for other people. It wasn't for me, I DNF'd it. So then I have read another one instead of that one, which is my number 5 read. I have read instead Kamisama Kiss, and this is a shoujo manga that I have been keeping on my shelves for ages, and I found out that actually I had a lot of first volumes of shoujo manga when I went down that tunnel a couple of years ago, and I had never gone through the majority of them. So I decided to pick up one, and I went with this. This is the story of this girl. Her father is in a lot of debt, and one day just leaves her and just says, you know, you have to fend for yourself. So it's a very shitty father, and so she ends up homeless basically. And so she is offered by this strange man who she meets on a bench in a park to go to his house because he has like this shrine, this temple that he used to be the caretaker of. He doesn't want to go there anymore. He doesn't want to be the caretaker anymore. So he says, you know, you can go there, be the caretaker of this temple while I'm gone. And just, you know, at least you have a roof above your head. So she takes the deal, especially because she doesn't have much alternative. And when she goes there, well, she finds that in the temple there are a couple of creatures, which are, I guess, these guys here. But also, and very importantly, there is this guy, I don't know, what is it? Is a Kami? I think it's Kami called. It says here that he's a familiar. So basically there is this boy who used to be basically kind of, yeah, familiar with other caretakers. So he has to basically do what the caretaker wants. And he's not very happy now about the change of ownership of the temple. So this was very, very cute. I didn't put this in 5th place because of anything particularly wrong with it or because I didn't enjoy it. I actually honestly did. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna watch the anime instead of continue on with these volumes, because I don't know, it's kind of in a limbo now where I don't know if I want to continue on with the manga or watch the anime. I know that they're very different, so I might watch the anime, and if I really like it I might decide to continue on. For now I might keep this volume and judge. Very cute, like the art, nothing wrong with it. It's just that because of what you're going to see in a second, it just makes sense for me to put this in 5th place, but I gave this solid 4 stars, and we continue on in a way or the other with the series. Then at number 4 I've got Why the Last Man Book 5, which is the conclusion of this series that I had started ages ago, and I'm very happy and pleased that actually I did manage to finish the series overall. This is not what I would consider a beloved series, but it's definitely a series that I liked, and overall I would probably suggest to people who like dystopian. And I think there is a TV show also adaptation of these. I might check it out, I'm not so sure. I didn't know what to expect, so that was a positive thing, because I got to this last volume and I honestly couldn't make up my mind. It did surprise me in a lot of the things, and a lot of the things that do happen in these I really truly enjoyed. Said that, there are other things that I didn't love so much, other things that felt very rushed. I'm not gonna give any spoiler, but for example 355 plot is just really, and I thought, but because this is the conclusion, I would have wished that some things were more explained. I didn't, however, completely didn't disliked the explanation we get. I just thought that because of the time we spent with the series, we should have been given a bit more, and that some plots, some subplot didn't make much sense. Said that, I think this is a series that upon reread will offer a lot, and I might one day, I'm not gonna do it anytime soon, but I am gonna keep the series and potentially one day reread it, because I think there is a lot to unpack about themes and conversations that are going on, especially in this volume where everything tidies up more or less. I've kind of realized that I should have seen some things, so now by knowing how it ends I can go back to the other volumes and kind of put all together. So it's a series that have that value of being read again, if it makes sense. And I gave this 4 stars. As you can see, in the last few months I had a lot of struggles with my books somehow, but my manga and graphic novel games is going strong. A standalone graphic novel, which is Killing and Dying. This is a collection of short stories. When I offered you guys a synopsis, or attempted to, I said that these could have potentially, you know, be short stories about crime in everyday society. It's not that. I think these were a bit more literature fiction, weird, whimsical short stories. This was fascinating, and yeah, I cannot exactly pinpoint why. Some stories were more strong, more interesting than others, but overall all of them had this kind of quiet, melancholic vibe throughout, like everyday melancholic vibe, and I thought that that was very interesting. That kind of vibe that I have days, for example, when, you know, the weather is shitty or I'm just having a rough time, that I definitely feel in the atmosphere. And I thought this was conveyed very well in these. I was expecting that, and it was delivered. His art style I really enjoyed, and I might definitely check out more by him. If you know the guy or if you have any recs, please leave them down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and if it's worth checking more stuff by him. However, ultimately it must be said that these are not groundbreaking, pull out your hair short stories. They are much everyday life, apart from a couple that were quite bizarre, I would say, but they still felt very common. Even the bizarre ones, they had just that amount of oddity to make them interesting, but it wasn't completely what am I reading, if it makes sense. Or yes, but in a very subtle way. So I would understand why some people might not love these. Some stories were definitely more common, more like, okay, what was the point of these? Just a couple of them I was just like, probably just one I was just like, okay, that was okay, I just don't know what left me, but it was just one of them. All the others, I think they had a kind of subtle message behind that I really appreciated. I will probably read these after not too much time. I want to reread these pretty soon, and I'm definitely keeping these and suggesting overall these. It was definitely my taste, which is weird because I don't like short stories, but I guess in graphic novels format is better, works better for me, and I gave these 4 stars. Gonna sneeze. Maybe not. Oh yeah. Yes. And number 2 we have Preacher, book 4. This is again kind of it's not a deluxe edition, but contains more than 1 volume. In one I think it contains 2 normal volumes, and there are a total of 6 books out, so I've got a couple more to go. There is also on Amazon a TV show of the first, like just 1 season, I believe. I don't know if it was cancelled. This is the story of Jesse Custer, and he is a very peculiar preacher who one day receives these immense powers by this entity. It's kind of like as powerful as God, and he's now on a mission to find God who has escaped. So God is nowhere to be found, and his mission is, now that he has these powers, to kind of bring justice and kind of find God and hold him accountable for the mess that the earth is. So that's a premise that, if it doesn't sound cool to you, I don't know what would. Like, it's the premise, it's amazing. Like, I love the premise. Said that, this is not for everybody, because this has all the trigger warning you can think of, in the sense that this is very blasphemous, this is very violent, and there is a lot of not only, you know, swear words, but a lot of the content, especially if you are a very religious person, you might find this offensive. I am not a religious person, and I absolutely love the parody that this is about, you know, some of the things that modern society and religious cults are all about. But I also love how just the story is unfolding. I had a missing the 3rd volume, I believe. I love the 2nd one, the 3rd one not so much, but this one we go back to the old good times. We have a lot of different scenarios in these. We follow a lot of different characters. We get also the backstory of one of the main bad guys, and that was very fascinating, and because it's definitely one of the driving forces of his story. So knowing what he's all about and how he came to be who he is was very interesting. I liked what happens in here, and the fact that we explore different settings as well, and we get also the backstory of another character that as of now, I'm not very clear what is his role in this story, or if he has one, or if it's just there because it's a weird character, but I guess I'm gonna find out in the next volumes. And the only thing I don't particularly love, it must be said, the art is not my cup of tea, and that's one of probably the major issues that I have, and that's just a very personal taste. It's not my taste of art. And also Jesse is not very much in this volume, like he is there, but he's not much there, not as in other volumes, so I did miss him, as I love Jesse as a character. And also, like, we keep having this Cassie, I don't know, this guy, I really cannot stand him. So the ending was a bit buggersome, like I was just, oh, I want to strangle that guy, or put him in the sun, where there were 2. So yeah, unfortunately we still have to deal with him. We'll continue on for sure. Exciting to see where this is going, but I'm taking my time because I've read this in a day, and it's a quite dense, it's a heavy read. so take your time with it. But Preacher, man, I love Preacher. And then number 1, which is not going to surprise anybody, and honestly, because I am reading a volume a month, I don't know if I will ever find something else, that any graphic novel or manga that will topple these. I guess it's a challenge. It's a challenge right here to see if anything else during this month will come as first place instead of Berserk. This is the deluxe edition, volume 3, contains 3 of the normal mangas volume. And oh man, Berserk. The love I have for Berserk, it's crazy. I'll show you the art. These are very heavy. These are grim, dark, horror manga, very famous and popular. It's the story of this guy who is on a path of revenge, and you in the second and this volume you have all his back history, so you have his origin story if you want, on how he came to be the Guts that we meet in the first volumes, which I am loving. Like the first volume I really enjoyed, but I wasn't in love. But since we start this arc of story of, you know, his back history, the origin story of Guts, and, you know, the other major characters in this series, I've been loving this, which is a problem because this girl is poor. I cannot afford to go and buy all the volumes in a month, and every time I finish one of these, because they finish such a cliffhangers, I want to go and purchase them all. So I'm trying to restrain myself, but you know, also like the guy passed away unfortunately last year or the year before I think, and so we don't have an ending for these, which is something that bugs me a lot. And I don't know if we'll ever see the end. I kind of feel like Nana, the other manga that I absolutely loved, and it left on a cliffhanger and it was heartbroken. It was like, is it gonna happen with these as well? I don't know. I cannot recommend Berserk enough. I think I will need to kind of make a video on like why I love Berserk so much when I've read maybe another couple of volumes, or all the volumes with the deluxe editions that are out now. I think that would be more fair. I think there are gonna be a total of 14 of these, but out now there are only 10. So once I catch up, then I will have to wait. If I can. There is also an anime, but I want to finish with the manga first. But guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been very long. As always, I ramble on and on. Let me know what are your favorite reads of the month, so I can get some good recs, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!